Good evening, boys. This is White Pill Media, and welcome back to the Trough. It's been a while since we've done a Trough, so sorry about that if that's what you're looking for. But to make up for it, we are doing several books. 6, in fact. Some of these are from authors that I've already covered on this channel, so we're looking forward to those. And yeah, overall, I think it's going to be pretty good. This is going to be a long video, so if you don't want to sit through all of it, use the timestamps I got down below. I got a timestamp for each book, so just go around to what you want. I know this is a big one. The last Trough I did, I don't think I included a food item, so to make up for that, we have 2 food items. I've tried pizza, and the dough is still too thick, but it's getting better. It's getting closer. It's getting closer. The taste was okay, but it still needs some work. And also, was trying around with some like loaves, and that turned out okay. I had like an egg that I beat and then spread across the tops, and then it kind of browned it, and I'm like, that was kind of cool. So there's that. 2 food items since I missed the last one. There's gameplay footage in the background. This is from The Great Rebellion. It's a fun game. It's made by good people on this side of things, so check that out if you want. You can get on Steam or from their website. I have links to that. And yeah, it's a lot of fun, so check that out. We have a lot to cover today. I have full spoilers for all of these books, and most of them are recommendations. We have Weird of the Skull Totem. This is book 2 in the Skarde the Wanderer series. Read book 1 first, but this is by Eric Waag, and this is another recommendation if you're looking for like fun, adventure, fantasy stuff, kind of like Conan, pulpy stuff. I recommend this. Really, check out book 1. I really enjoyed it. Violent Ends. This is a follow-up by Steve Stark. You could technically read this on its own, but I would recommend reading Hot Dose in Hell first. And this is a collection of 3 stories, and they're all horror. They're kind of gruesome and ugly, but I like them. And we have Mutagenesis book 2. This is by Jordan Allen. This is a sequel as well. A lot of sequels this week. And this is still like we're set in the post-apocalypse. We're following Jason and his friends, and he's still trying to pick his life up and get things under control. I don't want to spoil it too much, in case, you haven't read book 1. So go check out book 1 if you're looking for like a post-apocalyptic adventure thing. It's fun. I like it a lot. And book 2 was also really good. We also have the Casebook of Patrick Midnight. This is by Arbogast, and this is, like a lot of pulpy stuff. But I love the cover for this. I like the covers for all of them, but especially for Patrick Midnight. We have our like noir detective guy, and then we have the little ghost in the background, like Pilgrim Ghost. This is good. More pulpy stuff. It's Patrick Midnight. He is a spy. He is also haunted by a ghost of his ancestor who quotes the Bible at him a lot. It's enjoyable. And he's like going around during the 1920s, and he's battling like communists and these things, and there's like devil worshippers, and it was a good time. Another collection of short stories. This is Double Dealer issue 11. This is a softer recommendation, but there were still like a few short stories in this that I did like. And I'll be continuing with picking up Double Dealers. Venus and Her Thugs, and this is a collection of 15 weird tales. And that one is, I'm still going to talk about it, but that's not so much of a recommendation. But these are just kind of weird, kind of disturbing stories, but we'll get into that one. There's 6 books to cover here, so in the interest of time, I'm going to be going somewhat fast over some of these, or more fast over some of the books I didn't really care for, but hopefully not too fast, so there's still like there's some discussion, but there is a lot to cover, so it's just in the interest of time. I don't want this to be like a 2-hour video. It's probably going to be an hour or so. So grab your books, and we're just gonna get right to it. We really don't have time to waste.
All right, everyone. It's time for us to open up our handbooks. We'll start on page 3. Operation Sea Lion, British Invasion 2. Please note the information under the bullet point: London explodes and crack battle vampires. Oh, such trouble. What to do with you? Go share with the captain for now.
Patrick Midnight. This is by Arbogast. And Arbogast, he's an author we've covered before. He's a writer for the Bizarre Guys. They do like weird pulpy tales. He also had a collection that came out a little while ago, Emperor of the Mountain. I liked that one as well. I have a video on that, so go check out some of his works. But as I said, this is a collection of short stories following Patrick Midnight, and he is basically a secret agent who is operating around the 1920s. And not only is he a secret agent, but he is literally haunted by the spirit of his ancestor, Reverend Blackstone. Cover is amazing. These are short, sweet, pulpy tales. The book also has some interior artwork that is nice. It's just some black and white stuff. Those are cool. And he ended up getting haunted by his ancestor when he picked up his old family Bible, and his ghost of his relative has been following him around ever since then. And apparently his ancestor fought in something called King Philip's War. And this is like the first like Indian war in the Americas. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. But he has to roam the earth now because of all the crimes he committed, so he's not allowed to rest yet. So, yeah, we have some history. The first story is The Adventure of the Silver Cross. We're in Mexico. There's, like, trouble with communism and stuff. Apparently, the communists have, like, taken over Mexico. I guess this is based on actual history. I don't really know jack shit about Mexico, and I don't want to know. But Patrick is down there trying to find a old book, because this book will lead him to a relic, and this relic is a special silver cross, and he's trying to bring this back to his organization, and his group is the Society of Gentlemen Geographers. You could think of this like Alan Moore's League of Extraordinary Men, except it's not subversive, it's not attacking like British people, and it doesn't have a bunch of rape in it, because that's what Alan Moore really likes, and he really likes rape. So it's like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but like good and interesting. While he's trying to get the book, he gets attacked by this Soviet agent who is not named in this story. I don't know if we'll meet him again at some point, but he's just the Bolshevik. So Midnight ends up meeting up with Lobo, who's this like crazy American who lives down there, and he's with the resistance fighters. They're fighting against the communists to do battle with the Bolshevik, and they're trying to get the cross. Blackstone, he hates everyone who is not like him. Like, definitely he hates papists and just any other religion that is not what he is. I guess he's just a Puritan, right? But he can interact with the world, he can fight and kill men, but it doesn't feel like he's just kind of this deus ex machina. It doesn't feel that way at all, where it's like, oh, can't Blackstone just come in and like win every fight for him? No, that doesn't happen. End up finding the cross and getting the cross, but like a demon gets summoned and Blackstone has to fight this off. So it's like we have like our noir kind of adventure stuff, but also there's like demons and shit. So it's like supernatural too, and I'm like, that's cool. We also have some interludes in this story, and our first interlude is just talking about Blackstone's first mission. This was back in 1919, and he was putting down some like labor riots out on the East Coast, and that's how he kind of started to get involved with the society. Next is the case of the Infernal Abbey. We're in Sicily, and Midnight is looking for Stanley Hopkins, who's the son of one of the society's members, and he's gone missing. Boy fell in with this bad, degenerate crowd. They're like artists and drug addicts, you know, those types of people. And on the train ride down to Sicily, Midnight ends up meeting a Mr. Moda, who he just seems like a nice Sicilian guy who's trying to help Patrick. Turns out he is a fascist. He's one of Mussolini's black shirts, and he ends up like taking Patrick in for questioning, but they realize they're on the same side of things because Mota wants the people who Stanley Hopkins is with. They're also like, they have like a devil priest with them kind of a deal, and he wants those fucking people out of his country. So yeah, they're working with the black shirts. Just watching the cult, they're looking for evidence because they don't want to just like rush in and grab them, and then they still like want to do this with law and order and stuff, right? But they end up watching the cult. The cult like sacrifices a cat, they drink the blood, and on page 67, Blackstone ends up killing 3 men, and the priest summons Pan, and Pan's just this demon thing. So Blackstone's like fighting that. He's kind of getting his ass beat. Midnight's able to pull through, and they end up winning the priest. Svengali is still out there. So the priest is still out there, but Stanley is going to be okay. And I mentioned that they sacrificed the cat. They also killed the woman Stanley was with. That's kind of important. I should mention that. So yeah. But Moda and his boys, they show up after everything's done. So that was a little disappointing. They're there for the cleanup, but they don't assist whatsoever in the actual fight. Second interlude is just a little thing. Midnight mentions that he had a first wife, so there have been several wives. That's interesting. And there's some demon stuff going on. Midnight's Christmas. He is here to bring a body back to the States. This is the American occupying forces in Germany after World War I. And there's this dead soldier called Klein. There's this castle called Skull Castle. Klein was in love with this girl, and he and a buddy of his, they used to go up to these parties at the castle where there were these hot chicks and everyone was doing drugs and all that. And Klein was totally obsessed with her. And he ended up committing suicide from not being near her. So they go up there to investigate, and yeah, it's just all this black market stuff. And it doesn't seem to be supernatural in any way, except that he finds this little relic, and it's called the Devil's Prayer Book. And it's who are these guys working for exactly? They were gathering intel on American and French soldiers. They were hoarding guns and stuff like that. We don't know exactly what side of things they were working for, but that's where we end there. Third interlude. This is about the invasion of Louisiana by some Haitians and brigands. They're cannibals. Of course they are. And he fights one called the Yellow Ghost. They are voodoo cannibals. And the Yellow Ghost was a woman, and he puts her down with a rifle, and he's I don't feel great about killing a woman, but she was a cannibal voodoo chick, so don't feel that bad, I guess. Mystery of Gearhart's Beach. This was actually in Bizarre Archives number 5. So if you've read Bizarre Archives 5, you've seen the story before. I still flipped through this, want to look at this again. We're in the Pacific Northwest, and the society is worried that the Japanese might be plotting something here. There's something weird going on. There's this weird family that showed up, and they were doing canning stuff, and they brought in a bunch of Asians, so the whites are pissed off because they don't have any work. There's this guy called Joe Justice, who's this labor agitator, communist dude. He's there too. And this family from the East Coast is from Innsmouth, which is Lovecraft stuff. So there's this huge battle between the labor communist people. There's a Japanese submarine. The town's on fire. There's literal fishmen, Lovecraft stuff. They end up sinking the Japanese sub. Very crazy at the end, but there you go. I don't know if that was just supposed to be a little homage to Lovecraft, or if it's hey, there's some more deeper Lovecraft stuff that can happen in the world of Patrick Midnight. I'm not sure, but I'd be interested in reading more. Fourth interlude. This is about Patrick. He just breaks up this little devil cult in New York. The little mention that the society is run by very powerful people, but they don't have that much sway in New York City. So it's ooh, who runs the society? We don't know. And Arbogast knows that we don't know, but we want to find out. So that's why we'll buy another book about Patrick Midnight. Midnight in Love. This is about him looking into the death of a writer who was researching ghost stuff, and he witnessed a cult, and this cult is called the Lodge of Aluka, and they would scam people by saying that they can talk to ghosts and speak to their dead relatives. And there's been some weird stuff going on, and he's visiting the widow at her house, and she was actually sent a crate with her husband's dead body in it. So it's hey, I don't know what these people want, but she's being harassed, and there's weird stuff happening at night, voices and everything. Oh, she has some photos of their seances and stuff, and lodge members do not appear in these photos. So it's May is this beautiful maid, and she hears voices. And on page 178, we had this wonderful moment. So he and May have just been talking the whole night, and they're having a great time together. He's wow, she's really hot. Also, I love speaking to her, so that's really wonderful. You have yet to ask if she is a Christian woman, lad, Blackstone bellowed up from somewhere in Midnight's stomach. You are a believer, Mary? Midnight's question was abrupt and temporarily derailed the conversation, but May smiled and answered him forthrightly. Yes, I am. I was raised in the church. I go as much as I can. Which church? Why, the church. There is only one, the true Catholic and Apostolic Church. Reverend Blackstone screamed so loudly that Midnight was afraid that May would hear him. Fucking great. Beautiful, beautiful. There's a lot of good little moments with Blackstone because he just fucking despises anyone who's not like him. It turns out the lodge is vampires and shit, and so they defeat the vampires. Also, the body that was sent in the crate, he's not dead. He's also a vampire who got like brought in with the cult. So they defeat all them. Order's restored. Midnight ends up sending some love letters to May once all is said and done, and she never answers them. She never answers them, and then we have a little flash forward where this is after Roosevelt has been elected, and he describes this as the end of his career, and he sees May, and May has a family, and I don't know, it's just a little sad, a little like, ooh, forlorn. Fifth interlude. This is in 1934. The society is no more. The Roosevelt administration thought they were plotting a fascist coup against him. Crimson Scarab, this is the last story. This is about a stolen artifact. So basically this guy steals this from the society themselves in Cairo, and this supposedly has the power to raise the dead, right? So Midnight is on the case. They're in London, and also there's this person who's going around and like killing prostitutes. So people are like, is there a new Jack the Ripper around? Well, the thief and the killer of women is the same dude. And so Midnight's kind of working with this female British cop, and they chase the guy down into a graveyard in a church, and the guy ends up summoning the dead, so they have to like barricade the church. And Wainwright, he's the bad guy, ends up killing a little girl in the town, and Midnight ends up beating him to death. For this one, I thought Wainwright, I don't know. It was just like, I'm not sure what Wainwright's purpose was, really, because, he mentions earlier that, Wainwright was, an occultist, and he's all just, a killer of women, and, maybe he was just doing this to experiment, but it seemed like, I don't know, a bigger leap to go from, I killed, a couple women, to I'm now trying to raise the dead kind of a deal. I don't know what led him to the path to find the scarab, maybe just because he's an occultist. It works, it's fine. I will say that I was hoping that there would be hey, here's a bigger villain for Midnight. Maybe that's coming in the next book or whatever about Patrick Midnight. We have the Bolshevik, he's still out there. We have that one demon priest, he's still out there. I don't know, kind of bigger villains or whatever, or rival organizations. I think he mentioned the Red Diamond spies or whatever out of Moscow or something. So this was fun. I really like Blackstone. Blackstone's great. And I definitely would read more, good, fun, pulpy stuff. Violent Ends. This is by Steve Stark. So, as I said, I reviewed a previous book by him called A Hot Dose of Hell, and that was a brutal and gory story. It was like Scooby-Doo, but if they're SJWs and they have to deal with real horror, it's a lot of fun. That's definitely a recommendation. You don't have to read that one first, since this is just a collection of 3 short stories, but some characters that were in the first book appear in here, and it's about the area that the first book is set in as well, so I would read that first. Just read book 1 first, and then come here. Our first story, this is called Spring Heel Jim. This is about a serial killer. He's going after women. He's actually being baited into a trap, and the woman he's going after is protected by 2 guys, and these 2 guys appeared in book 1, and he's just humiliated and taken out. And he's just this ugly, pathetic little worm. He imagines himself to be this big, badass killer, the spider, and he's not. He's just a creepy, greasy little dude, and he gets what he deserves. And this was fairly short, but I liked it. It was nice to see these characters again. Big Mouth Strikes Again. This is about a church that's being turned into a nightclub. Brian Fuchs runs this, and he's an awful man. He's greedy, malicious, just vying for power. Just a very, very bad man. And some of the construction guys are drilling, and there's a literal demon imprisoned within one of the walls, and this is Belial. And I'll bring up Belial later on. That actually has a weird coincidence with one of the other books. And Brian has a daughter named Paris, and she's just awful, vapid, selfish, and she fits in so well with the first book's crew and like everyone around her, like her boyfriend Sam and all their friends. They're perfect. And there's a lot of like voice is done really well. Steve Stark does that really well, where it's like you don't need a ton of pages to like get like a snapshot of a character, you know what I mean? Like where it's like they feel like they're living and breathing. Brian's going around. There are a lot of problems with trying to get the club up and running. They're calling it the cathedral. They smash some religious artifacts that have been desanctified, you know, quote unquote, but still like they're smashing like a statue of Jesus and everything to get the club up and running. And he ends up going to his wife, Catherine, who's an alcoholic, trying to convince her to go to the club opening with him just for appearance's sake. She refuses, and she's like also visited by like a ghost of a priest who warns her, you know, like, hey, we imprisoned a demon, you know, within that church. So whatever happens, don't let that demon get out or it's going to kill everyone. And she's like, I don't really give a shit. And she just drinks and does some drugs. So yeah, we got problems at the club. There's not enough security guys there. We have Copper and Windows, who is also known as Window Liquor. I like him a lot. We have Tez. He's one of the construction workers who was fired by Brian. He's facing eviction. We had this nice moment on page 87. 2 pints of Carlsberg love. Bottles only, she said. Expression bored. Second daily repeat of her kid's Peppa Pig DVD kind of bored. That was just a nice description. And once again, Tez held out the note. When the barmaid tried to take it, he hesitated to release, initiating a gentle tug of war, his attempt at flirtation. It didn't go over as he might have hoped. She wasn't paying attention. She snatched the note, slapped his change down on the bar top, ignoring his waiting palm. No tip for you then, Tez muttered, collecting the coins. Pasty, arsed, miserable bitch. He went to say it again, but this time to her face, and felt a firm clench at his shoulder. I thought that was a nice little exchange. Tez is one of our good guys. There's a lot of like kind of awful people in this, but Tez is a guy who is out of work. He is facing eviction. He's just kind of screwed overall. And while he kind of has this snotty response with this barmaid, it's also like everyone can kind of have those days. Everyone can kind of have those moments. And especially for him where it's like 2 weeks and then he's going to get kicked out of his place and he might not even be able to find like another job for 2 months and he's trying to get help from like the housing authorities, and since he's not technically homeless right now, they don't give a shit. We have lots of characters introduced. These are friends of Paris and Sam, but the voice, as I said, is done well in this limited space. And we also have a like MC or DJ of the night, and this is Primo, who calls himself Father Primo, and he's in this priest getup, you know, just to add to the mockery and degeneracy. And he calls himself the God here. And while the party's going on, you know, we have that little crack in the wall, and that little crack has been getting wider and wider and wider. And then here's Bilal, and Bilal's here, and he kills the priest, and then he just starts slaughtering people, and it's a total fucking panic. I like this on page 106. There was one chick who was like working the front like booth, and she was described as having like a plastic like sex doll face and like a huge ass. And Windows wanted to save her, but she gets lost and like her booth is ripped down from the wall and he never sees her. And it's just like a little moment, but Windows, maybe he's not the brightest guy, but you cared about him in that moment and you felt bad. On page 107, Copper, he talks about the Manchester like bombing thing. Apparently the media was saying don't look back in anger, and I'm like, was that true? Did the media actually say that? And I'm like, yeah, I fucking buy that just with everything, but like holy fuck. We have Bilal, and he's just it's just a fucking nightmare. It's a fucking nightmare for everything. So if you want to see like some vapid horrible people just get like disembodied by this demon, this is a lot of fun. Tez tries to fight Bilal. Windows also tries to fight Bilal. I like these guys. These were our guys. It doesn't go good for them. It does not go good for them or for anyone for that matter. And it turns out that Bilal made a pact with Brian. Brian was like his advocate because he was like just an evil dude and he like sensed him. And Bilal ends up vomiting down Brian's throat. It's gross. It's really awful and terrible. But he's doing this to like give him essence and like give him like some of his power and like feed him. It's weird. Some of the people have been trapped outside in the smoking area, which is like actually like a little cage. And Craig is out there, who was Taz's friend. And Bilal opens it and they have nowhere to go. And it's just everyone's panicking and screaming and trying to get through the fence. And Craig loses hope here. And he is killed because he's not squirming and trying to fight and escape like some of the other people. So some of the other people are able to make their way through the fence before Bilal is able to eat them, and they can escape. But he loses hope and he dies. Brian comes to, and he gets more power from Bilal, but he wants more and more and more, and he literally like drowns in it. It kills him. And Bilal's like, what the hell am I supposed to do now that I don't have an advocate? Like, what the fuck? And then literally Lucifer arrives. It is literally Lucifer himself. There he is. It's the devil. There's Satan. You know, they have a talk. Bilal realizes that he's redundant, that people are already evil. And if people are already evil, then you don't need demons to tempt them, and they're kind of out of a job. And Bilal literally cries. He literally cries over this. On page 139, I liked this line. Lucifer, however, merely smiled, displaying a glimmer of the divinity still ingrained in his essence, and Bilal had to shield his face from the awful benevolence. I like that. Lucifer, he's not being a dick here. He just says, hey man, come home. Just come home with us. And, you know, we can reign in hell, right? It's better than being on Earth right now because we're just not really needed anymore. Are humans the real demons here? No, the demons are the real demons. Bilal coming in and fucking eating everyone, he's the real fucking demon, okay? Humans are not the real demons. While this crowd of people might not be the best people, only a few of them were like really evil and really bad, and that was like Brian, and maybe some of the other people weren't like fucking great. They were like corrupt, bad people, but I would say that humans are mostly good. But the mostly good people are outnumbered here, you know. So we have like Tez, we have like Window Licker, and there's just probably just innocent people that want to have a nice night out, and they were just eaten. So no, the demons, you know, humans are not the real demons. There's a lot more like bad. There's a lot more hedonism. There's a lot more just corruption and nastiness. So yeah. Nowhere Fast. This is about three boys, Dunbar, Riley, and Juicy, I guess. They're on a crime spree. They broke out of like a boys, like juvenile, like facility, and they are cruel and stupid. They break into this elderly couple's home and they murder them. And they're just going on town. On 152, this is just a gross little detail. But Juice is like, because they had one girl with them, and she got killed, and this guy shot her with a shotgun, so she's dead. But like when she died, she like fell, and like her ass was kind of sticking up in the air. And Juice is thinking about having one last go with her. And it's just, oh my fucking God, that was so gross. So they leave, they kill another guy, and they're just on the run. Cut to this other couple. We have Paul and Heather, and they're fighting. We're not sure what they're fighting about. It seems a little sexual. And Paul is hesitant to do whatever it is that she wants him to do. And we're like, what the hell is going on here? This is really weird. I don't know if I like this. But it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Later on, the boys, they get there. They break into the home. They find Paul and Heather downstairs. They are naked and chained to the wall. And the boys think they're going to have a good time with Heather. They're thrilled, right? They're thrilled. It goes bad very fast because Paul and Heather weren't doing a weird sex thing. They are actually just werewolves. And it's a fucking slaughter. Like there's a part where the dumb one, I think it's Dunbar, he is holding Juicy, like half of him, and the werewolf woman has the other half, and it's a little tug of war. and usually is missing like his legs and his intestines are hanging out, and it's fucking gross. At the end, Paul and Heather, like all the boys are dead, but Paul decides that he's no longer going to hide his animal self. He kind of likes it, you know, and he's going to listen to his wife and just kind of be more wild and out there. I don't know if this means they're going to terrorize like their friends and neighbors or what, or they're just going to hunt down certain people, because I guess they retain some parts of themselves when they transform. I don't know. Let's not think too much about it. So those are the 3 stories. And then we had, and the afterword was Steve Stark talking about like inspirations for the stories and all that. He said he based Jimmy on someone that he knew, and he wanted to like unglamorize serial killers. And apparently Jimmy's death, which was pretty brutal in the story, was based on something he witnessed firsthand. That's concerning. He also worked as a bouncer, and I could relate. I worked as a door guy at a bar. It was a pretty tough establishment. Usually, most nights I'd get to sit there and read my book. I read Don Quixote when I was working there. That was fun. And I'd usually eat like a chicken Caesar wrap. Sometimes, you know, you'd have to go take the trash out or like bring food to the tables if the waitresses were busy, and yeah, it was kind of nice. But I could relate, you know, he was talking about breaking up fights and all that shit, you know. I'm like, I was right there, man. This was a fun and quick read, so there you go. Check out Hot Dose of Hell, Violent Ends, good stuff. Definitely want to read more by him. Weird of the Skull Totem. This is book 2. This is a continuation of Skarde the Wandering Sword. Definitely, you gotta read book 1 because this is a sequel. This is fun, action adventure. They're like pirates. They're doing pulpy Conan stuff. It's cool. We are with Skarde and his men who, yeah, as I said, they're pirates. They're just kind of going around, fucking shit up, stealing stuff. And they're being pursued by some enemy ships, you know, after they raided a merchant's vessel. They had a few ship battles, and Skarde is doing his best as a pirate captain. I like this on page 42 and 43. A mountain appeared that looked as if it had been struck with a gigantic axe. It was as 2 peaks coming together, split by a deep cleft. And I'm like, that's cool. That's a nice description. Page 43. And what if there are rocks? Savo asked. We swim, said Skarde. That was cool. They like fight a warship, and their ship is damaged in the fight, and they're forced to beach on this haunted coast. And a lot of the men are like, ah, man, this is like fucking evil and shit. We shouldn't fucking be here. And they're like, ah, too bad. But, so they're on this beach and like, ah, things are okay for now. It's pretty quiet. But, of course, they run into some cannibals. And they end up losing some men to them, and they're just trying to repair the ship and get the hell out of there as soon as they can. And Skarde is a good leader. He's really trying to keep his men alive. He doesn't want to lose anybody, but of course they're losing people, and he takes like each loss like pretty personally and seriously. And the cannibals are like doing raids on them, and they realize like, hey, we're not going to make it staying out here. So he climbs up to like the crow's nest on the beach ship, and he sees that there's a castle way up this mountain, and he's like, that's where we're going to this castle. They get to the castle, and it has a broken drawbridge, but the cannibals will not follow them inside, and the castle seems abandoned, but like the place is littered with a bunch of corpses just everywhere. So while they have some respite from the cannibal attacks, it's still like, I don't know, are we still in a bad place? Because the tower to this castle is still locked for some reason. And Skarde also sees a dark figure watching them, and he doesn't know what the hell that is. Some of these dark figures, these wraiths, they attack the men, they kill a few, and then one of the guys, and this guy has been like panicking and freaking out the entire book, but he ends up running off and getting killed. Skarde's really upset by this guy because he's really trying to keep this guy alive. And Skarde is also still bedeviled by his demon sword, Moorsfangel, like Prison of Moor, I believe. But Skarde decides that he's going to explore the tower while they're here. And it turns out that these wraiths are actually 3 hot chicks. It's like, nice. One of them is like the one on the cover. So there you go. While they have an uneasy truce with these women, their ship has been burned. So what are they supposed to do now? On page 133, Skarde talks a little bit about his past. I don't think we got too much in the first book about Skarde's past, and this is only a line or so. but I like this. His friend Balgetti, who's like the Mongolian like horse archer guy, is with them, and Skarde says, "I was a boy of meager means among the fisher folk of the mountains and seas of the north. Do you believe in fate?" Skarde said. I like that. That's just a little like insight into Skarde's origins. He was with some humble fisher folk. Now that the ship is gone, they have no choice but to kind of fight their way out because they can just be starved out within the castle. Skarde, his men, and the women, they go off into the forest and they're attacked by cannibals here and there. And then they end up getting these horrible visions of monsters. This is a trick. This is just an illusion, but men start killing each other because they think that, they're trolls or snakes or whatever. So they're fighting each other. And some of the men have been captured and they are being sacrificed to like this demon altar thing. It's kind of cool. Skarde appears and he kind of gives in to the giant demon sword that he has. It's been like asking him to like, "Hey man, let me out. Hey man, we can do a bunch of cool shit together. Come on, I won't be evil. I promise, dude." And he's like, "I don't know, man. I shouldn't trust you." But he kind of has to do it here to get to have the strength to defeat all these cannibals and free his friends. The sword ends up overtaking him in his body, but he's able to overcome it by the end of it. And they've lost a ton of people by the end. Like his crew has been just whittled down more and more and more by the book's end. Skarde is not going with the Baronetta. And I guess I guess she is the one on the cover because she has blonde hair. And I thought that it's it's going to be Skarde and Baronetta, right? Like that's going to be the love interest. That is not so. But Skarde decides to leave because he's burdened by the demon sword and he got a lot of his men killed and he doesn't want to be responsible for anyone else's death, right? So he's going off. His friend Balgetti is going with him. And we also have Zalata. And Zalata is like the silent swordswoman who she has to have a pass, but she's pretty badass with her swords. His men are just going with Baronetta and they're like trying to reach another settlement. And while the head shaman was killed, the cannibals are now fighting each other, so they're not really too much of a threat now, I don't think. I guess I will say that I am looking forward to another adventure. I'll definitely read more Skarde because this is cool. This is fun. I thought the villain was a little disappointing. I think this is just because book one's kind of villains or sort of antagonists had a lot of intrigue behind them. But yeah, I'm still really interested in the world. Zalata, she probably has a really cool backstory, and I can't wait for more. This is something I do sometimes. This is just small scraps where I point out little editing things. This isn't to be petty or mean, but it's just hey, I took notice of this. So we'll just go through those now. Some of these are just little tense issues, but overall there weren't too many, I didn't think. Page 23, a chill touched pierced him. I guess just remove one of those. Page 59, he looked at what surely was an apparition sent from the bleakest netherworld. Sent. 79, his left leg was injured, capital T space the tribe. Page 99, Balgetti's look spoke that he should no, so I guess already. As he reached the doors and lay a hand on the bar, the tall woman raised her hand to halt. So because we're using reached and raised, I think it has to be laid. Page 130, we needed a good road for our villagers, as taking goods upon one's own back or with a lone horse would no longer suffice. We endeavored to cut a way through the forest there. Endeavored. And page 143. They'd had enough time to enacted their plan. So just some tense issues here and there, but not a crazy amount. And that's not to be petty or anything. I really like the book. Venus and Her Thugs. This was one I didn't really care for overall, but we're going to talk about them. I'm not going to cover all of these in the interest of time, and also because I didn't really love it or anything. So these are 15 weird tales. This isn't a dig or anything at the publisher or that crowd, nothing like that. But I just didn't love all these stories. I agreed with a lot of the topics and ideas in these stories, but they were presented too directly for me. They were in my face. And I like segregation. I mean, I like segregation, and I like segregation of politics and ideas from my fiction. Like, I wish there was more subtlety here. Like, I want it, like, I'm fine with, like, this stuff, like, being present, but it felt a little obnoxious in some of these stories. Like, talking points and whatever, like, more, like, political, social stuff in, like, podcasts or Twitter articles and videos, but, like, in the stuff I'm reading, I want it like woven in a bit more like naturally. Like when I was reading this, I ended up putting it down at one point to read some Patrick Midnight. And in that hour of me reading Patrick Midnight compared to reading like 1 hour of this, I read quite a bit more of Midnight. So that's a point to Arbogast. But yeah, I didn't really love it. So I'm not covering each story like I said, and some of them I'll just give a brief description. And it's like, yeah, while I agree with this stuff, it was just a little like, you get it? Like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like red meat for, this crowd. It's like, yeah, I understand. I understand the point you're going for. In one of the stories, we have some migrants break into a dead woman's home. She is rotting. There's also a dying dog there that ends up killing the boys. And at the end, the dog is nursing 2 new pups. Not super subtle. We have another one where it's a white boy that converts to Islam and then some Buddhist crap. And he dies in like this hellscape thing. I'm sure there's something there. A baby shower, something single motherhood, and then she's like birthing maggot things. Second marriage. I like this one. This is about a man who's this divorced loser and degenerate gambler. He's in debt to some Asian crime boss. He's forced to have a prostitute that does something supernatural to her clients when they have sex. He's forced to house her, and eventually he ends up sleeping with her, and it ends up killing him. I thought this was good. This was like, there's probably some political stuff there, but it was more woven in, right? I've got something to show you. This is about another loser criminal. He's in a bad marriage to a literal whore. He has 3 kids, and they all aren't his. And this is just about like his ugly and dirty life. There's some like maybe subtle weird things going on, but I thought this was good as well. Lions. This is about a husband and wife who are fighting. There are 2 stone lion statues at their house. There's a babysitter as well and a small boy. The dad leaves at one point, and then one of the lion statues is gone, right? And at the very end, there's the boy describes a literal lion being there, the lion coming out and attacking the babysitter and screaming at her and telling her to put the boy in the house. The mom being dead in the shed, and the boy sees the dad as a lion. And I thought this was cool. I thought this was done very well. And I'm like, once I got it, like at the end, and I'm like, oh, awesome. One of the stories is about a feminist group college thing. The men, when they try to participate in the conversation, they get shouted down. One of the men like really annoys our female character because they talk to her too much. Another one pisses her off because he's like kind of eyeballing her a lot. And then later on, after this feminist meeting, the one who bothered her with all of this conversation has a softer, almost feminine voice, and his body is also just kind of getting hurt and he doesn't feel it. The other guy who eyed her a lot, he's lost both of his eyes at the end, and he just has red pits, and he can't see her. And it's like, okay, so not the most subtle thing, right? It's kind of just whoosh, there it is. Like, White Pill Media is a bit of a midwit, but I can pick up on that. So we have another one. We have a woman who gets gang raped by some teenage scholars. And we have her husband comes home and doesn't save her, doesn't do anything, doesn't call for help, and he just runs away. The story is from a point of view of a young girl who was watching TV, and this came on late at night, and now she's in her late 20s. She's dated a lot of guys and is now with can we say jogger on this channel? I'm not sure. So scholar, jogger, whatever term you want. She's now dating one of those guys. And she's on the couch with them. They fall asleep. The TV's on. And she sees more of this incident that she remembers from her childhood. The woman who was gang raped, her body is now covered in boils that burst. and out comes some half man, half spider creatures. And the guy that she's with is also, she realizes, one of the boys from the video. And then she ends up running away, and she goes to her mother's house, and she breaks out in a rash, like the woman in the tape broke out in a rash, and then those turns into boils, and then the half spider, half human monsters burst out of her. I thought this was pretty subtle. I didn't quite get this one. I'm not really sure what the author was trying to say. Do you guys kind of see what I mean? Where it's like, I don't necessarily disagree with the message or so, but it's a little too on the nose. It's like I'm being punched in the face with it. Make sense? Okay. Sleeping Beauty, this is about a chubby wife who becomes a fatter and fatter wife. She wants to embrace fat positivity. I had a note on page 159. Anyone who doesn't recognize fat phobia as a form of acquiescence in patriarchal norms should just fucking watch this. Disgusting. And this is just red meat. It's just like a little annoying to me, like how just there it is. Where it's like, I don't believe in fat positivity or whatever, obviously. But it's a little like, yeah, I agree, man, whatever. Turns out she's like possessed by a demon parasite thing, so he ties her up and starves her to force her to get into shape, and he thinks that, this is his Sleeping Beauty, and then once it's all over, she's going to be like thin and beautiful, and I'm like, holy shit. We had another story where it's like this fake alpha male who's really just kind of a loser. He's trying to trick a hot, dumb woman into sex, and this woman lives with her ex-boyfriend who is withered and dying in bed. And we are shown a photo where the man is fit and well built. Woman who's like really smoking hot right now. She was a little dumpy in the photo, and there's probably something here about women corrupting men or something, or she got beautiful at his expense and now he's paying the consequences for it or whatever. You know what I mean? So this isn't so much a recommendation. That's not like anything against that publisher or that crew. But maybe I would check out more from them. But this wasn't a promising first book, I guess. Double Dealer issue 11. This is a short read. I didn't love this, but I would read more. Anthologies are hit and miss sometimes, and this one was more of a miss for me. But yeah, I would still read more Double Dealer. Monarch's Way. We are walking around Charleston. There's a lot of history and stuff, and we're pointing out landmarks and everything. But there's not so much there in terms of character and story. I don't think this was a good way to start this anthology, because I'm like, I don't fucking know Charleston, right? So maybe if I was really familiar with the city, I'd be like, oh, cool, they're mentioning that, or oh, cool, they're mentioning this. But it was just a series of landmarks and some historical stuff that happened with them. And that's not so much of a story for me. College Boyfriend, we're in a girl's point of view. It's about her going to a Catholic college and getting a boyfriend and some of the trials and tribulations of that. I felt that this was all right. I think I would have liked this more if it was written by a woman, because the author was male, so it felt a little kind of male feministy kind of a deal. I don't know. It kind of felt that way. Crick Walk. I like this one. This is about two boys that live under a bridge. They are barely surviving. They are barely getting enough to eat every day. They are runaways. They won't go back home. However, they don't discuss what drove them out of their home, what they did back there. One of the boys ends up getting sick because they just drink water from the creek, which is kind of crazy because you think especially rural people would know to boil it at least or something, but they don't do that. So one of the boys is very sick. The other one goes away from the bridge, and a guy calls the cops, and the cops are there, and the other boy might be dead. I don't know if returning home is worse than death. I would think not, but if it's a very abusive household, then I don't know, maybe a home would be better, but going to a home, that could be bad too. There you go. But I like the boys in this. It was nice. Stone Man. This guy has a bone disease. It's killing him. There you go. Helena's Pity. These people travel to a land they don't belong. The man dies there. That's the story. All right. Nursery. Man is haunted by his ghost wife and baby each night on the baby monitor. he works as a mechanic during the day, and his nights are always haunted like this. And he can't let his wife and baby go because they were killed in this accident. This ends up leaking into his daytime job, and eventually he goes into work and he starts seeing like his wife. He doesn't get sleep and he's just frantic all the time. And he just lives this kind of robotic, simple life where he goes to work. He likes working as many hours as he can, and that's it. That's all he has. Eventually he works up the courage to go into the nursery one night, and he rocks his son to sleep in the rocking chair. And then his son kind of fades his way, and his wife also leaves. And I thought this was good. I thought this was sweet. But it also reminded me of this from South Park.
Now let me make one thing crystal clear. I don't like kids that screw around. You screw around in shop class, you can lose a hand or an eye. I have
Mr. Adler?
A little spy stalker story that was all right. And then we have like a story, was it Roman Light? An atheist saves this woman. She's dying. She doesn't want to go to a doctor. She wants to go to a priest. So he swims across the Tiber, and he's like this nasty little dwarf thing. And he like regains his faith by doing it. And overall, I thought the collection was okay. I'd say my heavies were Crick Walk and The Nursery, and I'll read more, but I didn't think this was the best from Double Dealer. Mutagenesis, Human Regression. This is a sequel to Mutagenesis, The New World. This is a post-apocalyptic story about Jason. He's trying to survive after his town is attacked in the first book. So, read the first book, then read the second book, then come back here. If you have any interest in this book, then go check out book 1, then book 2, then come back here. So book 1, it was cool. It's a recommendation. You really care about the characters in it. You care about Jason and the people he meets along the way. We're in book 2. We're with Jason and Sniper. He's still searching for his two sisters. He's still looking for the boy that he ended up escaping Shackford with, Kyle. And I had a note already on page 2. This is about the note that he finds at the end of book 1 that he says here it was from Kyle. But I will compare this to page 248 in book 1. Jason, if you're still alive and ever come back here, I've headed north. It's scary to travel alone, but I know you'll find me eventually. Please take care of yourself. Jason recognized the handwriting immediately. So there's no name or anything here, but because Jason recognized the handwriting immediately, I assumed it was one of Jason's sisters, Lindsay or Abigail. Page 2 of book 2. Jason, if you're still alive, it's the same thing. It was from a young lad, Kyle, who had escaped Shackford with Jason. And I'm like, okay. I think there has to be like a little dash Kyle or something just for him to go like, oh, this was from Kyle. Because it could be from his sisters, right? Because Jason hasn't been back to the town since the night of the attack, so his sisters could have, like if they were hiding in the town, left a note and then fled or something like that. So it just seems weird to me that it's like default. I know this is Kyle because I would think that you would recognize your sister's handwriting before recognizing Kyle's handwriting, but whatever. Small note, not a big deal. He and Sniper, they're traveling, they're looking for Kyle, and they meet a man named Camlorn on the road. And this guy, he says that Benedictus, who is the villain from the first book, is a part of a group called the Regressionists. And they think there's a way to turn mutants back into regular humans, like stage 1 mutants into regular humans. Camlorn is not so subtly set up to be something extra, like more than human. They don't join up with Camlorn, but they let him go. And they end up making it to Highwayland, which is a little base that has like an elevator going up to like a highway, like a raised part of the highway, far from the ground, so they're safe from mutants up there. And Kyle's actually there, and Kyle's been doing well. He ended up getting to Highwayland like months and months ago, and he has a decent life there. So they're now looking for Abigail and Lindsay, Jason's twin sisters. On page 41, a guard talks about Camlorn, says that he used to travel with some girl that stopped a year or two ago. It was Amanda. No, it was Angie. I had a theory for a little bit that this was actually Abigail, Jason's sister. This was a wild theory that the guard was just misremembering the name, and that somehow after like Shackford, Camlorn ended up running into Abigail and they like fell in love, and I don't know if they were married or he's just like protecting her. And I thought maybe this was like a foil or something to Jason and Sniper, where Sniper is like the gruff older dude that's looking out for Jason, and Abigail and Camlorn would be like, he's the gruff dude looking out for this naive, innocent kid, but he got like Abigail killed or something. I thought that could be kind of interesting. That doesn't happen. But that's not what's going on with that. That's just unrelated. It's just another woman whose name starts with A. So we had a lot of wild theories for Mutagenesis Book 2. We'll get into them. Camlorn kills a dude in town and he runs away, and they end up getting a list off of him, and he has just a list of targets to kill. And they decide they're going to look at this list while they're also looking for his sisters. So they end up going to Harmony, and this is like a degenerate robotics town. There's a huge bounty on Jason when they get there, so he's kind of laying low. And they decide that they're going to try to help Camlorn kill Carlisle, who's this really powerful dude. He was a good friend of Benedictus, so he's involved in some shady shit. Go to this nightclub that Carlisle owns, and one of the dancers of the club is called the Jewel of Narama, and this is actually Abigail. And Jason just kind of forgoes the entire plan and guns down a guard and grabs his sister, and they escape, and they're now hiding out with Miranda, who is the daughter of Gunderson from the Black Haze Merc group from book 1. And Miranda's nice. She likes Jason. She's very forward about her attraction to Jason. But they got one sister down, right? And she hasn't had a good life. She was picked up and she was sold into slavery pretty fast after the fall of Shackford, and she's been forced into some bad shit by Carlisle, right? Hiding out with Miranda for a little while, and Jason decides that if Abigail was sold into slavery, then Lindsay was also sold into slavery. There must be a record of Lindsay's sale, right? So he's going to go look for that. He ends up running into Griffin, and Griffin is the guy who sold him into slavery in book 1. And Griffin's just like a minor little villain. He's no Alvaro, but he's nice to see. Yeah, he's no Alvaro, but I liked him here. And it turns out that Lindsay was also bought by Carlisle, but Abigail never saw Lindsay while she was working at the club, so she has to be somewhere else, right? So they think she's in New Dallas because Carlisle also has a club there. Sniper and Abigail already left for Highwayland while Jason was out looking for like auction information. So he ends up going to Highwayland with the Black Haze group, and they end up running into a stage 2 mutant on the prowl. And this mutant is called Big Belial, just like in Violent Ends. So that was a weird fucking coincidence. That was fucking odd. But there you go. We have Belial and Belial. We get a chapter in New Dallas with King Mercer, who is still cleaning up corruption and restoring order to the city. What a fucking tease on page 166, where one of the guards asks why Mercer tolerates the degenerates, and we don't get a fucking answer because Jordan Allen's a fucking tease. Jason was like, hey, Sniper, what do you call stage 3 mutants? He's like, oh, we'll tell you sometime. And I'm like, okay, are we going to run into stage 3 mutants to find out what they call them? No, that doesn't happen either because that's just what fucking Jordan Allen does. So whatever. I guess we have to buy another book. That's fine with me. I like these books. So they make it to New Dallas, and they end up meeting Mercer. Jason's never met Mercer before. Sniper and Mercer, they had issues in the past because Sniper used to be with the Mercer Guard, but he ended up going away after his wife and son were killed, and he always thought that Mercer was behind it, but that was wrong. It wasn't true. And they end up kind of making up, like they're all good now. On page 223, Adma, said Lyra with certainty, a small dive called the Trough. I will pretend this was a fucking reference. I will pretend that's a fucking reference there. But they're looking for Camlorn in New Dallas, so they're asking Lyra, who's like the nice street vendor chick who Jason was crushing on. She's still in town, they're still pining for each other. But they're going to the Trough. They end up finding Camlorn there. The Star Republic gets mentioned. It's been mentioned a few times in this book, and apparently there's some horrors there. Is that going to be book 3? Are we going to talk about Star Republic in book 3? Because it sounds interesting. And their plan is to find Carlisle, and they think that he's going to be in a lab where the the regressionists are doing a bunch of like experiments and shit, because like of course they can't like reverse a mutation. That's just something they sell to people, and it's really fucking cruel. But they do have some other experiments that do work, and those are pretty fucked up and evil. They end up finding the lab in like outer New Dallas. It's guarded by revenants who are degenerates that are also like cybernetic and shit, and there's some mutated dogs. And on page 234, he would get revenge for his sisters, and he would find a way to bring Lindsay to a new home. And I thought, that's too optimistic. There's something else going on. They're gonna like go in the lab, and they're gonna find her, and she's gonna be like a degenerate, like her face is gonna be all fucked up, or she's gonna be some other like mutated monster, or she's gonna be dead, or something. So that was another wild White Pill Media theory. On page 244, after they get in the lab, they kill the evil doctor, and they find Carlisle. And Carlisle is on life support because he got fucked up and hurt by his own guards in just a mistake. Jason ends up pulling the trigger and killing Carlisle instantly. And I felt that this was a little too hasty here because we don't know where Lindsay is exactly. And it doesn't look like Carlisle can speak, but he can still like move his eyes and like he's aware of their presence. So it's like, hey, like blink or something. Or I feel like they could have threatened him or something, because it's like you don't know exactly where Lindsay is. I feel like it's kind of a gamble to assume that Lindsay has to be at this nightclub or whatever, you know, because I would assume that Carlisle has like a bunch of places that like he just owns like all around, and she could be stashed like anywhere, right? Or she might be in the lab or something. That was just me thinking that something really worse was being set up. But I'm happy that it wasn't. I will say I didn't think Carlisle was too much of a villain. I mean, he literally never speaks, right, with the main characters. I liked Benedictus a lot more, but he's just kind of, he's just weak and pathetic, and I know that's like the point. But I would say the book's not so much about like Carlisle as an antagonist, but it's more about like kind of this journey here. It's about finding his family and Kyle. And while Carlisle has hurt Jason's family more than like Benedictus ever did, he was still like okay. But Benedictus, just because like we got to spend time with him and like he interacts with Jason, he left more of an impact for me. That's that. They go back to the club. There's Lindsay. So now we have Lindsay and Abigail. Jason asks Lyra to go with them to Highwayland, and she brings her blind father along. So he's got Lyra as his main girl. So he has Lyra, his sisters, Kyle, Sniper, Camlorn. He's really losing it, and he's going to start turning into a mutant pretty soon. So Jason is going to like put down Camlorn when they get to Highwayland, but Sniper does it for him. And at the end of the book, Jason still has hope. I think it's in a good place. I don't know like what's next. Maybe the Star Republic, maybe whatever. You're right. You know, he's got Lyra. I assume they'll just get married or whatever. I think Miranda would have been nice, but whatever. You know, Lyra, ooh, she cooks armadillo. Great. Exciting. She seems fine. Oh, so small scraps. There were only a few. This happened, I believe, twice or so. But it would say, but I'm sure old Patch would have been more than happy to stick his dog on me and let the mutt feed. I think this happened more than once, but it just like sick his dog on me, not stick. 168. Prince Daniel and his squad of 6 men made their way through Adma with the young prince sticking close to his father's sides. Should just be side there. I would think it would just be side there, not sides. Page 174, Daniel unwittingly his own eyes. And then later on in that paragraph, he finally dared to open his eyes once more. So I think we're missing closed there. Page 188, Jason quietly crawler out from underneath the motorhome with his shovel in hand. Crawled. So not a lot of edits there, just a few. But yeah, that was it. Definitely want to read more about book 3. You know, another solid book with Jordan Allen. This is nice. I thought it'd go a little darker in tone. I'm pretty happy that it didn't. Yeah, I think that'd be fucked up. I think that while this is post-apocalyptic and there is like bad shit going on, I think like, hey, here's your sister. By the way, she's like some degenerate, like fucking monster thing, and maybe you have to kill her or she just has like a horrible life. You know what I mean? I don't know. So, long trough. Sorry about that. But that's going to be how it's going from now on. I've decided to change things up on the channel. I am not going to have Trough videos back to back to back anymore. It has to be like Trough, and then something else, and then it could be like Trough. At least there has to be one video separating Trough from Trough, because I know not everyone loves the book stuff. That's going to be a change that's going to be implemented from now on. So that means the Trough videos are going to be longer. So yeah, probably like an hour or so, because I'm going to probably do like 3 or 4 books at once. Probably not 6. This is just like put out a string of videos without doing any books for a while. So now here are some books. Next week, I'm trying for Friday, but I'm trying to have a Hunter x Hunter like overview video next Friday out. And then after that, it might be like a movie review or so. And then the week after, it'll probably be another Trough. That's probably the schedule. That's it. I'll just plug at the very end, I have a book out. It's called Dullahan Samradra. It just means summer. And it's Irish mythology, dark fantasy story. It's about a young girl who finds a man with no memories and a disembodied head, and she sends them on this quest to find her father while there's this war going on. They like fight monsters and shit, and there's this stuff going on. And if that sounds kind of interesting, you can read the first chapter for free on my Substack, or you can go purchase it. Thanks for watching. Check out these books if they sounded interesting, because we covered some good ones. And I usually like to have at least a few recommendations. If there's like some books I don't really care for, I at least want like a couple that I'm like, hey, check this out. That's it. Thanks for watching. White Pill Media out.